Hello there, welcome back guys. Welcome back to a brand new video of Mighty Ghost Tag YouTube channel. So guys, in this video we are going to look one of the JavaScript features which is known as the arrow function. So arrow functions are basically introduced in ES6. So basically in this video we are going looking into different example of arrow function with comparing with the traditional functions, and we will see what are the different way where arrow function should be useful and what are the different way where arrow function have some disadvantages. So let's jump into the JavaScript arrow function. So before we move further about the arrow function, let's understand JavaScript traditional functions. So basically JavaScript's functions are loosely classified into two main categories. First is a function declaration and first is a function expression. So function declaration is nothing but the common way of declaration of function. This is the common way of function declaration. Now if I wanted to convert it into the function expression, then I will simply refer it to the any other variable. This way of writing is commonly known as the function expression. Also you can remove this function name. If I remove this, if I write this way, then this is also getting known as the function expression. Also it is known as the anonymous function. So this is the common way of function declaration, and once you refer it with any another variable, then this is known as the function expression. And you can combine this function declaration and expression like this. So difference between this and this is nothing but the name of the function. Here I did not mention the name of function. Here we are mentioning the name of the function. Either you can write this way or this way or the normal way. These all are included in the JavaScript. Now let's jump into the arrow function. Let me copy common syntax of arrow function. Let me paste here. Now if you see, it is simply referring to the variable like the same way. Now we will see. So the syntax of arrow function does not include the function keyword. You can see that here I did not mention function keyword. I simply remove that word, and in between the round bracket and the curly braces we are using the pad arrow. So if I wanted to convert this into the arrow function, then I will simply remove this function, and in between this round bracket and the curly braces I will simply add the pad arrow, and that's it. This simply get converted into the arrow function. Now let me just format it. Okay, all right. Now let's understand the arrow function more briefly by taking the different example. Now the first before arrow function we are writing the function expression like this, and after the arrow function the difference is like we remove this function keyword from here and simply add the pad arrow in between the curly braces and round bracket. Now let's understand arrow function more briefly by taking different example. First, arrow function with no argument. So arrow function is no argument is like here we are not passing any argument. So if I just save this, now if I wanted to call this, the calling of arrow function and the traditional function is same. So there is no difference while they are calling, but during the declaration there is the difference. Now if I call this function, you will get the output as the JavaScript function declaration. Alright, let me change this to JavaScript function declaration to the arrow declaration or arrow function declaration, and it should be valid. Alright, now I can pass any number of argument like the normal JavaScript expression. If I wanted to pass the argument, in the arrow function, then I will simply pass like this only. This is the same as the normal expression. Now here I will simply pass 1 2 3 If I again run this, then you can see that arrow function 1 2 3, whichever value I pass here. Now the second example, arrow function with one argument. This is what we just saw, arrow function with the multiple argument. Now suppose if I wanted to pass with the one argument, then I will simply remove this and remove this as well. Now if I run this, okay, I forgot to remove from here. Let me remove from here. Okay, let me run this. Yeah, now we will get 1 as the output, arrow of declaration 1. Also for the arrow function with the one argument, you don't require this round bracket. You can simply remove this round bracket and you can run this program, you will get the same output. But in the case of multiple argument, you cannot write like this. For the multiple cases, you need to wrap it under the round bracket. But in case of the single argument, you can remove this and you can keep it like this only, and you will run, you will get the same output. Multiline arrow function. The example third is talking about the multiline arrow function. Let me copy this. Let me put here. So the multi-line arrow function is the nothing but the whatever content we require, we can add in this content. And if I run this, you will get the 12. Nothing but the sum of the 5 and 7. So this example I taken to explain you single line arrow function. Now if I scroll below, you can see the single line arrow function. Now suppose if I wanted to convert this multi-line arrow function to the single line arrow function, then what I can do? I will simply remove this return statement first. Once I this remove, now I can just return from here as well. You will get the same output. Now instead of writing in this way, I can write in the same line. Now if I run, you will get the 12 as the output. Now the single line arrow function is not end with here only. For the single line, you don't require to mention the return as well as the curly braces. So this is what the beauty of the arrow function. For the single line, if you wanted a only single small operation, then you can declare an arrow function and specify the operation in the single line itself. Now if I run this, then you will get the same output. So instead of writing in multi-line, so you can use the arrow function to write the code in the single line. That is what the beauty of arrow function. Now we just saw the single line arrow function. Now this single line arrow function beneficial if you wanted to use inside the expression. So just understand arrow function as an expression. Let me copy this. Let me put just below here. So here I basically use the ternary operator, and if you just see the condition, if the age is less than 18, then it will simply print the baby, and if the age is greater than 18, then it will simply print the adult. We can simply write the console as well, but here I just wanted to explain you how you can use this arrow function inside the ternary operator and inside the ternary operator with the help of the single line arrow function. Now let me remove all this. Now we will see the another example, ify with the arrow function. So if you don't know what is ify, so ify is basically means immediately invoke function expression. So in short, it is known as the ify. So ify is the one of the JavaScript design pattern. So let me show you that. Let me copy this. Let me paste here. Let me specify its name. Say hello. Now the mostly we have to call this function. What we does, we simply copy the name and just below or top we will simply call this function name with the help of the round bracket. Now if I just run this, you will get the hello world out. So here comes the role of the ify. Now let me wrap it under the round bracket. I don't require this function calling with the help of ify. I can directly call this function whenever the compiler came at this function. For calling, you also mention the round bracket again at the end of the function. Now if I just run this program, you will get the same output. Here, with the help of if we don't require to call the function declaration. So here we don't require to call the function manually. It will automatically invoke. This is what it says. Immediately invoke the function expression or the function declaration, whatever it is. Okay. Now this if is also work in the case of the arrow function. Now if you remember, the definition of arrow function is like we don't require the function keyword. Now I will remove this, and in between the round bracket and this curly braces I need to add the fat arrow. Now here also I don't require the function name, which is not required in the arrow function. Now if I save this, again I run this program, you will get the same output. Let me differentiate it. Now if I run this, here we go. You get the same output. So IFE is working in the case of normal function as well as the arrow function. Now the argument binding with the arrow function. Let me tell you about the argument. So if you continuously watching JavaScript interview playlist, you may remember that I made a video on JavaScript REST operator and the spread operator difference between them. So in that video, I explain about the argument as well. So what argument does? Argument is basically taking the number of parameter whichever we are passing here. So if you don't know about argument, I will suggest please check out my video. I will provide the link in the description, or you can click on the I button to watch that video. We can use the argument in case of the normal function declaration. If I run this, you will get the output as the 4, 6, 7, which is mapped with the index 0, 1st and 2. So this is what the value I am passing during the function calling. Now if I wanted to convert it into the arrow function, then I will simply remove this function keyword. Then I will simply add the fat arrow in between the round bracket and the curly brace. Alright, now if I run this, you can see I got a different output. So this is happened just because the argument is not working in the case of the arrow function. So in order to work with this scenario, what you can do, you can simply mention any variable and you can use the rest operator. Now if I just console the x value, now if I run this, you will get the 4, 6, 7. So to understand this rest operator and the argument more briefly, I will suggest watch my previous video. Alright, now let's take a look into the another example. Arrow function with the promise and callback. So if you work with the async await, so if you work with the promises and callback, this is what we write the code. But in the case of arrow function, we can simply remove this function from here, and we can simply add the fat arrow. In this scenario as well, it will work. This example I just added to know that. So the arrow function is also working in the case of the callback. Now the new keyword with the arrow function. Let me copy this example. If I run this, you will get the hello world as the output. Now this new keyword which we require in the case of the normal JavaScript function, where we actually require to call a function as a class. That's why we require a new keyword. But in the case of the ES6, the new keyword is not working. So ultimately for the arrow function as well, if I just call this again by converting this function into the arrow function, you will get x is not a constructor. So the new keyword is not working in the case of the arrow function. That you have to keep in mind. This is the common question which asked in the interview. Now the arrow function with the default parameter. This is the common for the both normal JavaScript function declaration and the arrow function. You can specify the default parameter like this. So this is what the example of arrow function. Now if I just wanted to convert it into the normal function, it will also work, because the default parameter way of writing is the same for the arrow and the normal function. See, I run this, I got the same output. Now this with the arrow function. For explaining this, let me copy this example. So if you just see, this is the single object. That object contain one key which contain the some values, and the another key contain the function. So in order to call this function, I can simply refer parent dot the key name. Now if I run this, what you will get? You will get Samantha Queen is my mother. But so where it's coming? So it is coming just because of this keyword. So this is basically referring to the parent object. So inside this function, if I use this keyword, it will simply refer to the parent. That's why I am able to call this value inside this function. But what will be the case of arrow function? So for the arrow function, this is actually not working. So if I just convert this function to the arrow function, now if I run this, see, you will get the undefined is my mother. So that is why this is not working in the case of arrow function. This is also another interview question. Now focus on the key point that we have to remember. So whatever we saw, all are wrapped here. So no more function keywords are needed while creating the arrow function. This is what we just saw. While creating the arrow function, we don't require the function keyword. In arrow function, parentheses are optional as well as the curly braces. So what it says? It says if I am passing single argument, then I don't require the round bracket. Let me show you that. See, the function is getting called. As well as we don't require the curly braces in case of the single line statement. Now if I wanted to convert it to the single line, I will simply remove the return statement, remove the curly braces as well. And this single line statement enough to return the same output. See, I got the same output. Now the arrow function has the implicit return. That is just we saw. In case of a single line, it is the returning the statement, and that return is actually the implicit. The arrow function can never be method. That is just because this is not supported by the arrow function. The arrow function can never be constructed. This is because the new keyword is not working in the case of the arrow function. Debugging may not is if you create an arrow function without the name. Yeah, this is what. So if you remember, the normal syntax of arrow function is like this. So this is what the normal function, this is what a simple normal arrow function, which is if we did not refer to any variable, then it is known as the anonymous function. And if you use this with multiple scenarios and without specify the name, then actually it is a headache. It is the problem for the debugging. Then arrow function is a little hard to read. This is little hard to read because most of the cases, if you did not use the arrow function without the name, if you use the name, then obviously it is the useful. So this is it guys, this is it for this video. We will meet again with another JavaScript interview question. Till then, bye.